Hey, everybody, Mark Herman, a.k.a. LA Bengals fan on most of the major platforms, and I'm joined here with Jake Circus of the Jake Circus podcast, and this is the Jungle Talk Bye-Week edition. Yeah, we didn't want to leave you guys out in the cold and not do a video for you because we do the previews every Thursday. So Jake and I talked about it and said, hey, let's do a bye-week show. We'll do things a little differently this time, obviously, because we're not previewing a game. So what we're going to do, we'll cover a little bit of news, and then we're going to go over and kind of redo our season predictions and look at the last 8 games and talk about whether or not we make the playoffs. Do we win the division? Where are we at? So we'll go from there. The biggest piece of news, and I know this is ridiculous, but it's the biggest piece of news. We got flexed out of the Sunday night game. Like, who cares? But apparently it was a big thing to a lot of people. They took it personally. So
Thank goodness. I think that's a good thing. I don't want to keep playing these road primetime games. They're such bad spots, I
yeah,
think.
my attitude is fly under the radar. I wouldn't care if we never played a primetime game. That wouldn't bother me one bit. We'll get all the primetime exposure we need in the playoffs. I don't care if we do that. I think it's easier for the players to have the same regiment every week. So they play the 1:00 game East Coast time, or the 4:30, but it's the same kind of thing. And we don't have night times. We don't have Monday nights. We don't have Thursday nights. So I just was surprised at how people took like this was like a personal attack of the Bengals. And it's not. It's TV ratings. The Chiefs Chargers is a better game. It's
Yeah.
just so, but it seemed like Facebook, like Twitter, everybody was kind of going, wanting the take and why are we disrespected? And so, guys, just chill. It's about wins. We need wins.
So
So,
I've got two things there. First, I think it's funny that we don't like people talking about us. That's kind of how I feel. Because growing up, no one ever talked about the Bengals. They were kind of irrelevant, even when they were making the playoffs every year with Andy and Marvin. No one really ever really talked about us. It felt like, and obviously when they were really bad, tail end of Dalton days, no one talked about us. And now starting last year when people started talking about us, I didn't like it. I was like, stop talking about us. I hate it.
right, right.
All these all these primetime games, and obviously they're 1-2, and then so far this year, and I don't think it would have been a necessarily particularly good spot to go to Pittsburgh for a Sunday night game, because I think Pittsburgh's gonna start to get rolling pretty soon after their bye with a really young quarterback, and they've got the Tennessee game and the KC game and the Cleveland game looking for. I just don't think it would have been a good spot in a primetime game. And the second part is most likely the week 18 game is going to get flexed if it matters, because they don't have a Sunday night game every week 18, because they flex the game that means the most. And it's very possible that game could decide the AFC North if everything plays into its cards. And it's very likely, it's very quite possible that the Bengals Ravens week 18 game ends up on Sunday Night Football for the AFC North.
And I would be okay with that. See, last year, if you remember, it was the Raiders Chargers, and that was for a playoff berth. So basically, what they do is they take the Sunday night, and that becomes literally the first playoff game. That becomes a game where winners in, losers out, and it was that simple. The only way both teams made it, I think, last year was if the Raiders hadn't kicked the field goal. They could have both gone in, but
Yeah, they both would have
they
made the
had
playoff.
but they had the opportunity to let the Chargers in and then didn't. So
Yeah, that night was the next couple of days after that were ridiculous. No one knew what they were talking about when that was a crazy night in the NFL. That was one of the more crazy nights that I can remember the last couple of years, with everyone rooting for the tie and just all hell breaking loose. And here's crazy man Brandon Staley doing his thing, and Rick Bisaccia, everyone loves him. That was a crazy game.
think about this. Just I know this is squirreling off topic here, but the Raiders made the playoffs. They had probably one of the most tumultuous seasons ever. I mean, with the Ruggs, drunk driving, and all the things that went down, and they weathered it with this coach who was a special teams coach. I know he didn't have the pedigree and all that, but the players rallied behind him. They got through it, and then they let him go, and they brought in Josh McDaniels, and look where they are now. And Bisaccia went to Green Bay. He's their special teams coach, but it was like I wonder where they would be if they had just left him there and made him the actual coach.
It's actually pretty ironic because Green Bay special teams are like one of the worst in the league right now. They're like 30th in special teams DVOA. They're a mess everywhere right now. I think Green Bay is going to be okay. I think they're going to bounce back and turn it around. But
Yeah, but they're a mess because they have no depth and they haven't drafted well. And
yeah.
and that's not on the coach. He inherited who wasn't there before, and they don't have a deep bench. So
Not like Masacio's fault, but I think it is funny that their special teams is actually one of the worst in the league.
And it was last year. So, but
Right.
I just think about, like, you look at the Phillies and there was the interim manager and you look what he did. And they said, you know what? And they did it that once he, I think, beat St. Louis, they said, you gave him a 2-year deal and took the word interim away. And I just think that was kind of where Mark Davis needed to go. But instead, he kind of, wanted to make, swing for the fences, and look where they are. So I don't know. Continuity is a big thing, so I think they would have been better off keeping him. But like I said, we digress. We squirreled. So the other thing is, I'm anticipating that we're going to have Hilton and Flowers back after the bye. So I don't think Flowers was that big an injury. I'm hearing Hilton for sure. I don't know. Reader's available to practice that week, but we don't know if they bring him out, if they roll Reader out against the Steelers. So that's kind of where we're at injury-wise. So do you have anything else on the news front? Like I said, it's been a light week. The players aren't playing aren't practicing at all. So
yeah. So it seems like Hilton's gonna be okay. Obviously, it was a little bit surprised when he wasn't able to go against Carolina with the pinky. I think it was the left pinky on his left hand was acting up, and he wasn't able to play against Carolina. Obviously, it didn't really end up mattering, but definitely want him for Pittsburgh. Missing DJ against Pittsburgh wouldn't be the end of the world because they have a tumultuous run game. They're leaning on an undrafted free agent instead of Najee Harris, who has had one of the he looks like Trent Richardson, honestly.
right.
Being with that DJ wouldn't be the end of the world, but you do want to get him back into full game speed before this, Tennessee on deck after the next week. So you really want DJ to get back. You don't really want DJ's first game back to be against Derrick Henry. And you go back to mid-January, what DJ Reader did in that game at Nissan Stadium in the playoff game against Tennessee. He was probably the most important player on the field.
Right.
For either team, maybe outside of Jeffrey Simmons, who Burrow is probably still seeing in his nightmares at this point.
Right. As do most quarterbacks.
Once DJ went down, we really kind of circled this stretch of games as when he was going to come back. You didn't really need him against Atlanta or Carolina. Would have helped to have him against Cleveland, but he was never really going to be ready.
No.
So this stretch of games is when, we expected him to ramp it up in practice and at least be a game time decision. Maybe we can get that on Sunday. We'll see. We still have a week and a half left, and I guess we'll know more information this time next week.
Right. Yeah. Last thing I have, and then we're going to jump into the schedule, the remaining schedule, is what we don't want as a team is we want to be out of the news, out of the headlines. We don't want a Xavier McKinney. I have Xavier McKinney as one of my safeties. We have individual defensive guys, and he goes out on his week off and goes to Cabo and has an ATV accident and wrecks his hand and is out, a few weeks. So that's what we're looking for. Nobody is out there riding motorcycles, doing ATVs, anything like that. Take it easy, rest your body. This is your job. Get ready for the 8-game stretch run that we have here. That's going to determine whether we make the playoffs. So no news is good news, people.
Yeah, apparently I'm reading it right now. You mentioned it. Apparently he violated a staple in his contract in riding the ATV. So that's fun. That's very Giants like. I don't think the Bengals need to worry about that. They have the culture set down. No one's going to Cabo. Everyone, Burrow said he was going to sit on his couch and play video games.
Perfect.
I think Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins were messing around and planning their bye week stuff, and they don't need to worry about anything. They're good in that department. I post bye last week. That's when they started to ramp it up. So we should expect the same thing to happen this year.
Yeah, I agree. So we're sitting at the same spot we were last year, 5-4 at the bye. Ironically, we had the same bye week last year. Last year's was a little different, though. We went in on 2 straight losses, and we really didn't know. I mean, I was concerned. I was at the Vegas game. We didn't know what we were going to get. and real happy to see that they really came out of the bye with the eye of the tiger, and finished the season strong, obviously winning the division and then getting on that roll and getting to the Super Bowl. I don't see us going in with as negative a thing, but we also aren't as healthy as we were last year coming out of the bye week. So we can go through. We have 8 games left. There's 4 roads, 4 home, and they go 2-2-2. They alternate. So we've got 2 on the road, Pittsburgh, Tennessee. Then we've got 2 at home, Kansas City, Cleveland. Then we go to Tampa Bay and New England, and Buffalo and Baltimore at home. The one thing I will say right off the bat is it's nice that our toughest games are in the jungle. So KC, Cleveland with Watson back, Buffalo, Baltimore, those are at home. So that's a plus.
The schedule gets harder every week because 3 weeks ago, I think I normally thought Tennessee was any good. Pittsburgh was one of the worst teams in the league. Cleveland was a mess. Tampa was a mess. New England was a mess. And now all those teams have turned it around. New England kind of too. Tampa, I think by December 18th will be I'll actually be at that game. It'll be fun. Tampa, cool. Tampa's gonna be fine. They're gonna be they're gonna have to play Tom Brady, the real Tom Brady, but on December 18th. None of this, Bucks losing to the Panthers bullshit. And then obviously KC, Cleveland at home. There is not an easy game left on this schedule. I think in early October we were circling the New England game in Foxborough, and as if like we dodged a bullet with that team, but going to Foxborough is surely no guarantee. This Bengals team has not done that yet. They have not gone to Florida and played, and they're gonna have to face. That's kind of where I'm circling that 3-game stretch: Tampa, New England, Buffalo, Monday night. There's no way looking at this schedule that doesn't at least throw some signs out there and just make you worried, because there's not an easy game left the rest of the way. So they're really gonna have to turn it on.
No, and this is where when you're looking, this is where losing the Pittsburgh game hurts. That's a game I really, really wish we were going into this 6-3 and not 5-4. But you're right. We get to the playoffs, we're going to earn it. I think we need 5 more wins. I don't see us a 9-win team winning the division or winning the playoffs. And I think the division is a real stretch, given that we're 0-3 in the division. So even if we win out our other 3, I don't think Baltimore is going to be 3-3. I think they'd be 4-2. So even if we beat Baltimore and split the 2 and we're 3-3, I think Baltimore would have the better division record. And with that schedule, I don't see us getting a game ahead of Baltimore.
No, I don't either. Baltimore's schedule is a joke the rest of the way.
Yeah.
It's optimistic in saying that the game on January 8th is going to be for the division. That's if Baltimore continues to play down to their competition, which they didn't on Monday. They looked really, really good against New Orleans on the road, the same New Orleans team that we should have lost to on the road a couple of weeks back. So Baltimore has really turned it on. They have led by double digits in every single game this season. They're really good. They're as good as I thought they were going to be preseason. They were so injured last year. They're still really injured. They have a ton of guys out, but they have a veteran front 4, young guys in the secondary that they're building on, and they're building off of, and they're playing more like a team, and they're really scary. But again, they still have to come to the jungle. I think the Bengals should be favored in that game. I don't think Buffalo's as good as everyone says they are, but they're still probably the top 2 team in football. So like nitpick and say, oh, this is gonna happen, but they have to start with a win against Pittsburgh. You can't fall to 0-4 in the division. That is just tumultuous, and that would be dreadful if they started 0-4 in the division, and then the very next week they pack up and go to a stadium that is not going to be very nice to them, because those are going to remember what happened about 11 months ago, and that's a game that I preseason picked the Bengals to lose. I did not particularly pick them to do very well in these games because there's no break. There's no. I really expect them to start stronger and maybe pick it up with those 2 last home games end of the year going into the postseason. But I did not expect them to have to fight to make the playoffs because of a slow start and because of those first 2 losses that really have set them back as we are almost in mid-November now.
Yeah, Pittsburgh was the big loss on a game we should have won. I mean, come on, make an extra point. We don't lose Clark Harris in that game. We win that game easily at the end with the PAT. So that one's going to cost us. I had us losing to Dallas when I did my predictions in the beginning, but I had us beating Cleveland. So it's that, and I also had us beating Baltimore. So we're chasing. We have to have. There's 8 games. We have to win 5 of those 3 to make 5 of those 8 to make the playoffs. We have to go 5-3. And I think we're playing for a wild card just because the tiebreakers aren't in our favor. So I got to win. So if Tennessee is a coin flip game, or we wind up losing Tennessee, Pittsburgh becomes a must win. You got to win one of those 2. And you want to get Pittsburgh, which is, I think, the easier ticket to punch than going and facing Tennessee. Tennessee's a winnable game, but I kind of look at things rather than picking each game. Let's say, like with Buffalo, Kansas City, we've got to win one of those 2. We can only afford 3 losses. So, and then Tampa, New England, I think we can beat New England in New England. Not if we play like we did in Cleveland, but if we play up to our abilities, I think we can win Tampa and New England. I don't think they're and the biggest factor, we don't know how injuries are going to play out. Josh Allen with his elbow now, you don't know what what the health status is going to be of some of these teams. But I don't see us being able to lose more than 3 of these 8 games and still making the playoffs.
I mean, the Bengals are going to be favored in 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 5 of these games.
Right.
So there's that. Like they're going to be favored in the next 2. So really, they just try to take care of their business. I'm not saying these 2 games are easy, but you said 1-1. I think that they need to go 2-0. I don't think Tennessee or Pittsburgh are very good, and they shit on Pittsburgh last year, and they beat Tennessee in the playoffs last year. So these are 2 teams that we've seen them beat. And 2 teams that I expect them to beat. I'm not going to lay down here and say that they're going to lose to Tennessee just because of Derrick Henry and because Mike Vrabel's on the other sideline. This is a team that they've beaten before, a team that I don't think is very good, a team that I don't think has a very high ceiling, and I think we're the exact opposite in terms of where our ceiling's at. And Pittsburgh, look, that's why I think it was so big getting that night game off of it, because I don't want to go to Heinz Field at night.
No. The team gets up more if it's prime time. They realize that they're the lone game on national TV. We don't need them doing that.
I mean, they went to the bank for a primetime game. They went to First Energy primetime game and couldn't move the ball.
Right.
It happened to Heinz Field. Same thing.
Right.
We kind of got screwed. This really wasn't fair, having 3 of the 6 divisional games on the road in primetime. That's fucking bullshit, man. That's so stupid. So I'm glad that they flex it out of, and it'll be a 3-5 game, and yeah, there'll still be people at Heinz Field, and it'll still be a big divisional game. But Bengals coming off a bye, they'll be favored by a touchdown, and just like they were in week 1, and they'll take care of business. Like I'm not really worried about the Pittsburgh game. I'm
only concerned because Watt's back. And we'll see what kind of Watt we get this week, because he's coming back this week, I think. So we'll see how they spell him, but it seems unfair that Watt will have played 3 games and 2 of them will have been against us, but it is what it is in terms of the injury,
They are so the rest of this season, Pittsburgh plays at a disadvantage because of who's calling plays for them. I mean, Matt Canada is one of the worst in the business. And just so much had to go right for Pittsburgh in week 1, just for that game to be even close. 5 Burrow turnovers. What, he has like 2 since then? I mean, come on.
Right.
This is a completely different team in terms of Cincinnati since the last time they played Pittsburgh. Bengals, I think the look ahead line was 6. Maybe it's a little less, but this one should be really it's 5.5. I mean,
right.
I expect the Bengals to win that game, and we'll talk more about it next week. But I would like to see Jamar ramp it up. We haven't heard his name in a while. It's sad. But look, it's better now than in late December. Same thing with DJ. Obviously, losing Cheeto for the year sucks, but you really can win without a corner. It's not the end of the world.
It's a big, but losing Awuzie is a big loss. I mean, it was nice having him. When you've got one of the top 5 corners in football, losing him hurts. That's all. But
I really think that they have to be 7-4 going into that Chiefs game. Because again, a team going to your own home field with double revenge is a term I like to use. Beat them twice last year. Casey's got double revenge, and I don't think
Right.
they've been playing up to their full potential. And obviously, I think they're really good. So that'll be a tough game for sure. That's the toughest game left, hosting KC by far. I mean, it's not even, number two is probably going to Tampa and then hosting Buffalo, but the KC game is the hardest game left on the schedule. And if they can be 7-4 going into that one, and they'll be a field goal and a half point dog, let's ride.
Yeah, no, I agree. And they have, listen, with Tennessee, my concern is that we watch Chubb run through us and we have Derrick Henry on that team. But the one big advantage we have, Tennessee is limited in terms of how many points they can put up. They just don't put up those kind of points. So if we can throw up, 28 points, we'll win that game. So that's my feeling with the Tennessee game. It's whether or not we have a defense that doesn't do what we did in Cleveland. So,
well, I think more often than not, if the Bengals put up 28 points in any game, they're going to win. They've put up more than 28 points 3 times this year. They're 3-0 in those games. They put up 27 twice and are 2-0 in those games. Every other game, they've scored less than 20, and they've lost all those games.
right.
That's the key, is to score the points.
Right.
So you're right. I mean, 28's a lot. I don't really expect them to go on the road and put up almost 30 against, Mike Vrabel defense, nor do I expect them to do that against Mike Tomlin's defense. Those two games are going to more have to be like kind of similar to what the Raiders and Broncos games were last year.
Right.
Just really, and Burrow has said a couple times the last couple of weeks that those two games are the ones that really gave them the confidence that they had, into mid-January, late January. Were those two games, and then seeing that they can win that way, and they haven't won that way yet this year. They've actually lost multiple times that way. Week 1, 2, week 5. Those 3 of those 4 losses were losses in games that were very similar to the Raiders and Broncos game last year, and they're 0-3 in those types of games this year. So they're gonna have 2 games the next couple of weeks on the road that are going to be similar to going to Mile High, going to Allegiant Stadium in Vegas last year and winning the games that type of way. So we'll see if that kind of gets turned around, but they have not won that way yet this season.
Well, hopefully they come out of the bye week with the focus. So what is your feeling? Do you think we pull off 5 wins or more out of the remaining schedule?
Sorry. I think the Bengals are the 4th best team in the league. I really have not put much stock into them losing twice on the last play, losing 3 times on the last play of the game. I think the offense is rolling. And no, I do. I think that they're going to go 2-0 in those 2 games. I think they're going to beat Cleveland. I think they'll beat New England. I think they'll beat Baltimore, and maybe they'll beat Buffalo. So that's.
And I think we got a shot at Tampa. It all depends on where Tampa is when we get down there.
The good thing is that like the Bengals are a really good team. So like all of these games are winnable. Like it's not like it's 2019 or 2018 where, there's a game that's a loss. That's a lot. And really last year, it felt like we didn't really know how good this team was yet. And there were still games like at Pittsburgh, at Baltimore that we circled. Okay, we're going to lose this game. And we won both those games last year by ridiculous margins.
Oh yeah. Easily. Yeah.
So we know how good they are. Everyone knows how good they are. Like I said, they're going to be favored in more games than they're not the rest of the way. And it's up to them to get it done. They've got to score points, and that's the key. I mean, they like I said, they scored 27 points 5 times this year. Those are their only 5 wins. So they have yet to win ugly. It's coming. Like they're going to win ugly eventually. It's a Zach Taylor team that it's going to get some ugly, and they're going to get the betterment of the result of the coin flip eventually. It's going to come probably in the next 2 weeks, but I do think that they win both those games. I really do.
Yeah, that would be the big thing. To come out, like you said, come out 7-4, play the Chiefs. Even if you don't come out victorious in that, you beat Cleveland and you're 3-1 coming out of the bye. So it is the key. It is the key. I do think we pull off the 5 wins. I do not think we win the division. I think Roquan Smith going to Baltimore kind of solidifies them. I don't see a scenario, unless Baltimore helps us, I don't see a scenario where we get a game ahead of Baltimore. And I don't think we'll have the division record tiebreaker. So
I fully expect to be traveling, not myself, but I fully expect that January 15th, the Bengals will play a road playoff game at M&T Bank Stadium. They'll play Baltimore back-to-back weeks. I think that's the most likely scenario, is that Baltimore gets the 4 seed, and that's where the Bengals playoff game goes.
okay. All right. I can see that. And if that's the case and we're playing Baltimore and they know that, then the last week of the season, Baltimore arrested starters. They don't want to show anything. We probably, if we've wrapped it up, if we guaranteed a wild card, it becomes a non-game and we meet them the next week. We're just going to have to see how everything plays out. But if we do wind up playing them in back-to-back weeks, neither coach is going to want to show their winning game plan, that they need for the playoff game.
I would probably hammer this down that more likely than not, we're either going to go to Baltimore or we're going to go to Tennessee week 1. Sorry, not week 1. In the
Week 1 of the playoffs. Yeah.
Yep.
So,
and then we win. Let's go to our favorite place, Arrowhead Stadium, once again.
Hey. What? We have nothing but fond memories of last year. I'm not falling back, not giving up the big lead to start, but we did leave that stadium with our heads up, headed to the Super Bowl. So we shall see.
Way ahead, though. There is still plenty of football left to be played and plenty of time for Bengals to make this a season.
Yeah, I agree. So, Jake, I forgot to let you plug where Jake does 2 or 3 podcasts a week, does a gambling show. Tell them where they can find all your stuff, Jake.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Jake Circus. That's where most of my Bengals football content goes, at Jake Circus. That's SIRKUS. Also, my pod, the Jake Circus podcast on Spotify. YouTube sometimes, but 2 to 3 times a week on Spotify, Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays.
Excellent. And you can always catch Jake here doing the previews with me on Thursdays. And please, we only ask, subscribe and support the channel. Hit that subscription button, hit that bell. You get the alerts. It's all we ask. Support the channel. And please give up the thumbs up, because that helps us in the algorithm on the analytics. So please do that. That's all we ask. We will be back. We're not going to obviously do a recap because there's no game Sunday. Jake and I will be back next Thursday with the preview of the Steelers game, where we'll look at it a little more in depth. And with that, I'm going to say, hoot, everybody, and enjoy Sunday. You get to watch whatever game you want. Take care.